Welcome to Masters of Self University podcast, your highest source of sacred truths and universal wisdom. Hello, beautiful souls. I'm Rachel Fiori, mystic, spiritual teacher, psychic healer, and founder of Masters of Self University. Join our journey of soul transformation as we deep dive into this latest episode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Masters of Self University podcast. I'm your host, Ellie Lee.
And I'm your host, Morley.
And today we are diving into a topic around psychic gifts and how much we dismiss within ourselves. And so, just a little bit about what I went through in terms of the brainwashing around anything that wasn't Christianity. I grew up really, really, truly, it was hammered into me that anything that wasn't Jesus or the Bible or the church was demonic or satanic, right? So even as a kid, I was obsessed with Harry Potter, like obsessed. Like I was obsessed with the books. I was obsessed with reading it. And I remember my mom not allowing me to read any of the Harry Potter books because she told me that it was full of witchcraft and it was demonic, right? And so there was even a point in time where I wasn't allowed to dress up anymore for Halloween because it was demonic. Everything was satanic, it was demonic, which is so ironic. And all of that rhymes because there is nothing but demons in Christianity. But anyways, so I've just been programmed over and over and over again that anything that is even the term psychic, like in the beginning of my journey, it triggered me because I was so conditioned to believe that psychic, quote unquote, was of Satan, right? And so as obviously I've been on this path now for almost 4 years, as I'm healing, as I'm elevating all of these things, there's been a part of me that's been really interesting to observe where the last 3.5 years, there has been this like bratty, like preteen girl that's shown up that's like, I want my psychic gifts the way that I want them. And when I show up like that, it completely dismisses actually the gifts that are so innate to me that are always online. Right. And so I have this, like, it's almost like this wounded inner child has like this fixation about what it means to be psychic and how she wants it to look like. And she hangs on to that. So anytime during, my journey that I've gotten visions or things have happened to me that are unexplainable, right? I attach to them and then I'm like, this is here's my gifts and here it is. And then it'll go away. And then I find myself being like, I guess I'm not psychic, all of this like all this like really pathetic. I start running all these programs like, I guess I don't have these gifts and I did it up. And it's been a really big eye-opening experience for me this year to see that, no, Ellie, your gifts are here. They're online. You just dismiss everything. And this dismissal that I do, this dismissing of the things that I uniquely and innately have definitely start from when I'm young. When I was a kid, when we're children, we have a lot of things that we experience, right? Especially psychically, that when you don't have enlightened parents or guides to guide you through what you're experiencing, you learn to dismiss them. And so I remember when I was a kid, I would have all these like strange things happen, like I would experience this thing called what I called the rushing feeling. And it was this like, I would feel like almost like I was like in a time machine and time was going really fast and almost like I was looking back on it now, it was almost like I was thrown into a portal that was like going at warp speed. And I was so afraid of it every time it happened because I didn't understand what it was. Right. And now looking back, I was like, oh, there was some psychic stuff happening. I just didn't have the words for it or the understanding for it. Right. And so I would go to my mom and I would have all this anxiety and I would be crying and I'd be like, hey, mom, like this rushing feeling happened again. And like, I'm scared. And instead of her nurturing me or guiding me or listening to me, she would dismiss me a lot. So she'd be like, okay, you need to get over that. Or like, that's not a big deal. Or like, you're talking about that again. And so what I learned to do over time to myself was just constantly dismiss me. And so I'm constantly pushing away what I actually have always been, because when I show up, for example, one of my gifts is that I can just feel deeply about everything. Like I can walk into a room and I can feel all the different types of energies in there. I can walk down certain streets. I can feel the different types of energy. I can feel the energy of objects. Like I can feel these things. And instead of recognizing and honoring like that, those are psychic gifts, Ellie, I just dismiss them. I just push them away. Right. And so what it does is that it keeps this wounded inner child that wants gifts the way that she wants it, right? she's waiting for that instead of honoring and seeing, no, it's right here. You've just learned how to dismiss that. You've learned how to demonize that. You learned how to push that away because that's what was done to me over and over and over and over again, right? Even as sensitive as I was, even as emotional as I was, all of those things were so demonized and they were so put down and pushed aside that that's all I do to myself now. And so I'm taking this animal communication class at MSU, and it's really expanded me in a lot of ways because it's allowed, even the quantum energetics class that we went through, learning what it feels like when I'm quantum jumping instead of expecting and wanting visions and hanging on to that. And so in our first class in our animal communication, or one of our first classes, Rachel had brought up, we were about to all psychically tap into her dog, right? And as soon as she was telling us, okay, we're about to psychically tap into my dog and like, we're going to start, and here are the ways that we're going to start doing it. All of a sudden I started getting like a lot of like anxiety. Like I was feeling a lot of anxiety in my body. And then when she brought up the photo of her dog, like all I kept feeling was like, I just wanted to cry. Like I just wanted to cry. But what it was also doing was like activating, what I was feeling was activating my stuff too. And so I thought that after, everyone psychically tapped in, I thought that I didn't receive anything because all I felt was my stuff, quote unquote. And then one of the other students went off mute and she was like, this is what I felt. She's like, I felt a lot of anxiety. I felt a lot of overwhelm. And then I just wanted to cry during the entire time. And when she said that, I was like, wait a minute, that's exactly what I felt. And then I remember Rachel saying, yeah, to one of the students, like, you're an empath, you're an animal empath. And the way that you receive messages is that you feel it in your own body. You feel what he's experiencing, because her dog was actually experiencing a lot of overwhelm because all these people are tapping into me. They're all looking at me and it's so overwhelming and it's making me anxious that I just feel like I want to cry. And I was like, oh my God. And it was such a beautiful way for me to see, this is what I dismiss. And then I say, I didn't get anything when I just got so much. I just got so much information. And yet, because I dismiss that this is my innate gift, right? I just think, oh, it's my own thing and it's in my own head and I'm making it up. And it's like, no, that's exactly the opposite. You're actually receiving so much. You just learned how to push all of this away. And then you sit there and you bitch and cry and moan. And you're like, why are my gifts coming online when it's all here? So it was like really beautiful for me to have that experience. And now every time, I drop in and I tap in with animals, I'm just like, what do you feel, Ellie? And the beautiful part about that now is when I'm not in my head, when I'm not running this program of like expectation and I want it this way, the visions come, and now I'm learning how to like read energy of the visions, but I'm not attached to seeing it anymore. I'm just allowing myself to feel what I feel when I do tap in with the animal.
When did these visions start to like happen for you?
Like visions in general?
Just what you were sharing about.
Well, I started getting a lot of visions like in the beginning when I started really like, working on myself, and then they went away and I attached to it. And then I started to run this program of like, oh, I'm not that psychic, like I don't have any gifts. But now it's like, there's still like these parts of me that like want it. I want to be able to see it because seeing it feels more tangible to me than me feeling it. And this is just another layer to the fact that I just constantly I don't, it hasn't fully clocked in that what I feel is the gift. Because when you grow up as a kid and you feel so much and you don't know why you're feeling so much and you don't understand why you're feeling so much, and then you go up to your parents and you're like, hey, blah, 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 blah. And all they do is kind of shit on you. And all they kind of do is just push you away. You just learn that something's wrong with you, that this thing that you are isn't cool. It isn't okay. It's actually a nuisance. It's actually annoying. It's actually a bother. And so you just learn how to shut all of that down. And so like, I've been going really into this thing of like, I know that I'm an animal empath. I also know that I'm an empath. And I had our astrologer at MSU. When I did a reading with her, she was like, you're like an empath extraordinaire. She's like, you are an empath times an empath times an empath. And when she said that to me, I had this moment where I was like, I don't know, because I can feel animals more than I can feel humans. And then it hit me the reason why that I've shut a lot of that down with humans was because of how much I could feel as a kid, and because it wasn't honored or acknowledged or guided. I learned really quickly, like, shut that down. Also, why would I want to feel all of these people when they all feel like shit? They all feel terrible. And like, I don't want to feel all of that anymore because I was taking so much it on. So I started to see that as not a gift. I started to see that as like, this is a problem that I have. And I hate it. I detest it. And I'm just going to push it away and I'm going to shut it down. And so now I'm really opening up to like, Ellie, this is such a gift. The ability to feel as much as you feel, the ability to feel it. Like yesterday, we were in class and one of the students brought up how she walks through this trail and she's surrounded by these like huge cedar trees, right? And she was telling about like how she can feel the energy and the soul of these cedar trees. And I literally started crying in class. Like I had all this overwhelming emotion come up and I literally almost started dropping tears in class because I could feel the energy of the trees that she was talking about. And I've always dismissed that when that is the gift. Like that's a profound gift to have. And yet this part of me just wants it to be this way, because if it's this way, then I'll feel this way. And it's like, no, Ellie, like it's here. Just honor it for what it is. And so it's been um really interesting to unravel and unfold all of that.
And what do you think it is that makes you want to attach more to the visual, like getting the psychic vision, getting the psychic hits visually? Because that is a thing, and I've experienced that a lot as well. It's like, oh, you hear the word psychic, and the first thing I think is like somebody having all of these visions, right?
Yeah.
But there's many different types of psychic gifts that we can have.
Right.
What do you think it is that like draws you into wanting it that way?
Because it's tangible. Like it's not something that it's something that I can actually see. So I think this is all to do also with just all of the brainwashing around this stuff, is like, because I've learned to not honor the gift of feeling, I just don't like it. I don't want that part. Like I want to be able to see it because seeing it feels tangible. Seeing it feels like that's something, instead of seeing that feeling it is exactly equal to seeing it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it kind of relates to like the way that Western science and patriarchy is, where like it has to be, you have to be able to see it for it to exist in this reality. And obviously patriarchy, as a, like, broadly speaking, does its best to wipe out the ability for us to feel, so that we can't feel our divinity, so that we can't feel our power or connect to it, so that we can be enslaved. So I imagine there are roots there, and there's a lot of probably subconscious conditioning of like,
Yeah.
oh well, if you can't see it, it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So therefore, we only want it. We want things to. We want to be able to see things so that we can validate our own experience that this thing that I'm experiencing does exist. And we just learn. Obviously, you shared your own personal, journey with this, with your own upbringing. But then as a society, we learn, generally speaking, yeah, if you can't see it, if you can't see it with your physical eyes, then it's not real.
Yeah.
And I remember having this moment when I was a kid, like thinking about this idea of God. And I remember thinking, I was like, yeah, but love exists. And I can't see, like, I've never seen love. I don't know what that looks like. I've seen people, quote unquote, love each other. Whether that was actually love is another question, right? But when I'm seeing two people together, who love each other, let's just use that terminology. You can't see it, but it does exist. And how do I know it exists? Because I felt it. And that made a lot of sense to me. But then I grew up not believing, and I didn't think that psychic, all that kind of stuff was real. I full on was a full product of patriarchy, thinking all fantasy, none of it exists. It's all make believe. So, like, why would I even watch a fantasy movie growing up when it doesn't even exist? What's the point of that? A lot of that's changed.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like my brother, you know, he is not anyone that's tapped in or anything like that. He questions everything that I share or that I talk about, right? And so I recently, I don't know why I said this to him. As soon as I said it, I was like, why'd you say that, Ellie? I was like, hey, like I'm practicing communicating with animals. Like, can I practice with your dog, George? And the first thing that he says to me, he goes, interesting. Right. And I just felt his energy because he's the kind of guy, and this is the patriarchy, right? This is what they've all brought us up in. It's like, I got to see it to believe it. You know, you can't just believe that fairies exist. I have to see the fairy to know that they exist, right? You're telling me dragons exist. I have to see it in order. And that you're right. Like there's definitely some subconscious stuff that's running there because of how I was raised and obviously in the world that we've been brought up in. That's like, prove it to me, really show me. Because when I see a vision, I'm like, there it is.
Yeah, it's like that prove it, that scientific model of like, yeah, you have to be able to record it in physical matter and write it down. And then obviously on the other end of the spectrum, it's like, well, you can't just, make everything, just make everything up and expect to believe, because it all comes from that layer of like false belief in the mind. We've all met those people who you can tell they are not grounded in their own selves, and they mindlessly follow it, listen, hear something and just believe everything, which is obviously the other end of the spectrum. And then unfortunately those particular cases are used to prove a point to the people that are so locked into the Western scientific reduction model of finite existence. And so you got these two ends of the spectrum, but if you don't actually allow yourself to feel like the truth and like feel things, then of course, like how are you ever going to know that that's a real thing if you can't even feel? Because I've always lived my life by like feeling my way through it. And that's why at first I really struggled with the quantum energetics class, because I couldn't feel what we were doing. And it wasn't until kind of like further on in the class, as I healed more and more of the powerlessness that was kind of blocking me from feeling, was able to actually start like doing what we were actually supposed to be doing in that class by quantum jumping.
Yeah. And I think that for me, especially, I actually love that this has to be this way for me personally, because if I was getting all the visions, if I was, getting everything that I wanted, I would never actually grow like I'm growing right now. And to be able to trust and start to read all the subtle energies that I feel, like yesterday we were in this animal communication class, and they had brought up this photo of this cat, one of the students' cats, and I could feel in my own body this like explosion of like my heart opening. Like I could feel this like energy coming from my heart. And at first I was like, is this anxiety? Like, am I feeling nervousness? Right. And I was just able to drop in deeper. And this is what's the beauty of what we learn at MSU, is to read subtle energies. Right. And as I was reading the subtle energy, I was like, oh, this is a nervousness. This is an anxiety. This is like a heart opening. This is like power shooting out of my heart kind of feeling. Right. And so when we were all sharing, and the cat's dad was there, and he was like, first of all, she explodes my heart constantly. Like, this girl takes my stuff and just alchemizes it. Like, and I could feel the power of this cat and what she does with his stuff. And so when he said that, it was just kind of like, there it is, Ellie. Like, that's what you have to trust. Like, that's what you're learning to feel and then read. Right. And so it's allowing me to really being a student of energy, like mastering energy, because I'm not getting it visually all the time, but I'm always getting it in energetically. I'm always feeling it. And so it's just a time for me to learn to read everything that's in there. It's sculpting me. It's really honing me in, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I used to have all these moments all the time when we were in the certification about 4 years ago, where Rachel will come in and, you know, we'd be coaching and Rachel will come in and offer just the most incredible guidance. And I would always, I still ask it sometimes. I'm like, how do you know that? How did you, it actually happened a couple months ago, like last month or something. Like Rachel, someone was coaching me through something and she came in and gave you this guidance. And I was like, how do you know that? She's like, because I can see it all. I'm like, that is just mind blowing to me that you can see all of that. But it used to really frustrate me when I was like first learning, because I was like, that's great and everything. That's great that you can see that, but I can't see anything. So like, what am I supposed to do in that case? And obviously the guidance was, well, you just keep learning and, you master the work. And over the course of the last 4 years, slowly and gradually, different things have come online for me. Not at all in any level in the way that Rachel, her abilities and gifts, it's just out of this world. But I am able to feel people in a very different way.
And see auras. He can see auras.
Yeah, auras and different energy and stuff, which is cool. I don't get there's all different stuff which happens. Sometimes the screens will change color, or I'll see like people's energy fields when they're really lit up, which is kind of cool. But it's still like it's infancy days, and there's not much I can extrapolate for it other than just observe. But while I am coaching, I have this propensity to just start to become my client. And this is how this is the place where I coach from, is knowing that in oneness in this moment, as I kind of just allow myself to just be in the way of selfless service for my client, I can just kind of enter into kind of what they're experiencing and kind of become what it is that they're moving through. And in those moments, I'm able to have a much clearer communication. And it doesn't happen all the time, but I will receive what sounds like a direct communication of what the programs are from the inner child. And then I'm able to guide from there, which is so cool compared to like where I started out, where it was just kind of like, just a lot more foundational, a lot more basic. But where I would get lost, and this kind of like mirrors what you were saying, is at first when I started to feel these things over the last few years, I would get lost because I would start to feel them and I wouldn't realize that I was feeling them. And so I would end up being in my mind thinking that I'm running all of these programs, and it was always after the fact that I would realize, oh, I'm empathically, psychically tapping into what they're feeling. And instead of realizing that as the coach in the session, I'm like falling into my own mind, which is similar to what you shared. And this is why it's so important when we're allowing these gifts to come online, to do the work and raise our level of consciousness. And I know now, obviously, when I'm in those sessions, that when I start to feel things, I have enough awareness now to not get lost in, oh my God, I'm feeling anxiety and I'm supposed to, blah, 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 blah. And I just allow it all to just come up and know that, oh, this is what they're feeling. And I'm centered enough and attached enough to be able to guide them through this energy while still remaining in my own center, my own heart. And when I'm able to do that effectively, it makes for a way better healing session. And it's been this beautiful education of how gifts can be used, in tandem to the work that we do. But also, what happens when we don't realize that, just like you were showing, we don't realize that our gifts are coming online and we expect them to be like, oh, well, it's my psychic gifts are supposed to be this vision. And it's like, no, it's you feeling what you're feeling right now in this moment.
Yeah. And also to say, like, you know, like you said, are a lot of people, and this is part of the programming with me too that I'm actively healing, is like when I have psychic gifts, then I feel special in some kind of way. Or when I have psychic gifts come online, like, oh my God, like then I don't have to feel my worthlessness and all of these things, right? And so people get really attached to being psychic or having these gifts. And it's like none of that fucking matters if you're not actually becoming higher, if you're not elevating your level of consciousness, if you're not, becoming a better being on this planet. Like, who cares what gifts you have, right? I've met some of the most gifted people in the world, and they don't do any work on themselves. And it doesn't mean fuck all, because you're actually using those gifts to like what is the word? Cater to your ego instead of actually doing what they're supposed to be for, which is helping this world. And we were all talking about this, like a bunch of us the other day, of like, when all of us elevate and we truly are becoming beings of oneness, when we truly start really elevating and our psychic gifts come online, whatever that looks like, telepathy, telekinesis, teleportation, like whatever unique gifts that are unique to you, think about when beings are becoming beings of oneness consciousness, how we can use those gifts to help. Like, oh my God, like, hell yeah. Like, how can we help humanity and beings on this planet with the gifts that we have in there when we're functioning as beings of oneness and when we're not riddled with all of the patriarchal separation, programs and brainwashing and all that stuff?
Yeah, and not to mention, if you can be the most incredibly psychic person, and if you're not centered in your own heart and connected to your own power, you can just project. Even if you've got all these messages coming in, if you're not truly a clear channel, you can easily project your own stuff onto the clients you're working with. And I've seen this massive, and that's why it's so important for anyone in this world, but especially people who are utilizing their gifts for the good of humanity, which is an incredible thing to do. But it's really important to pair that with doing the real inner work and actually raising our level of consciousness. Because otherwise, and I've seen this, otherwise you can just project and you'll either traumatize someone more or lock them further into, by not offering the right guidance, lock them further into, a trauma loop or a resistant pattern or something along those lines. It's just so important that it's kind of cool that you get, the way that I've seen it a lot, your gifts don't come online until you're more powerful, which is great. But it's not always the case, right? It's not always the case. Some people, I wish I understood more like the mechanism behind why some people clearly just have everything right there and others they don't.
Yeah, I mean, I think this goes back to like even, when you and I both got our astrology readings, a lot of what she was telling us is like we have these things called skip steps in our chart where we chose to kind of slow everything down in this lifetime, that it's going to take what it takes, how long it takes for things to come online, because we have certain challenges to overcome and become and things like that. And so I think that's probably one of the answers to that question of like, it's, people come in equipped, but and others don't. But even the ones that I've seen equipped, like, my God, they have all this stuff online, but their human self, there's so much suffering that's still going on. And that's why it's just integrous to do the real work on yourself so that you can actually help people with the gifts that you have. I had this girl that I used to know, really psychic, and one of her clients did a reading with her and it triggered her so much, and then she didn't give the how of how to overcome what she psychically just told her, right? And their friendship broke because of it. And it's like, yeah, that is integral. Like, that is in integrity to, if you're psychically, reading someone and giving them something and you're not teaching them what to do with it or the how, like that could be really dangerous. Right. And so it's just really important for all of us. Just the number one thing is just do your work, and everything else, like, it'll come, it'll, you'll know when it's time to use the gifts that you have in ways that are of selfless service to everybody else.
Yeah, and if you're like Ellie and I, when we started this work, who didn't have anything like that fully online, or like Ellie shared, there may have been lots online and you're not even aware of it, right? That's the other part of this that, you know, she went into. Just know, by you truly healing and elevating, you will gain a deeper level of awareness of what you do have to work with in this lifetime. And the only, you know, byproduct of you finding your own power, it is going to be those gifts coming online naturally, organically. And I even know some people that are scared to do that. They're scared of their own gifts, which I think is really interesting. Like, they're scared to open themselves up more because they, you know, they don't want to see the, you know, the evil entities that exist in this world. And they know that if they start opening more to and finding their power, then they're gonna have to do that. But the irony is, it's the part of us that is in separation, you know, our shadow self. That's the part that's scared. And when you find your power, you realize that that's not even the real me anyway. That is just a false version of me, which is stuck and trapped in time. And so as you move through this process of finding your power, the parts of you that are afraid, that want to stay small, that don't want to look at things, they dissolve. And so as they do in this beautifully organic process, as you move through that, it allows things to come online organically. And there won't be any fear present. And if there is, then because you are finding your power, you just transform it really quickly.
Yeah, beautifully said. Beautifully said. So for those of you out there who are like, I want the gifts. Okay, go into that. Why do you want them? Why do you need them? Okay, do the work around it. And for those of you who have learned how to dismiss, you know, innately what's always been there, really, really tap into that and really see, you know, where that came from, because it'll be a huge healing for you. And honor what you innately are, and honor what's always been online for you. Thanks guys so much for listening to this episode. Share this with anybody that you think would benefit from this. We are holding free student enrollment meetings now at Masters of Self University. So sign up at mastersofselfuniversity.com and learn about what it means to enroll as a first year student at MSU. Until next time, we'll see you guys then. Bye.
Bye.